Hey, extra warning about this video. I'm going to be discussing some kind of very erotic, exotic materials in this video, and I'm almost definitely expecting this video to get unmonetized, possibly shadow banned, possibly even taken down all the way. I'm going to let you guys know I have a Patreon, and if any of these scenarios happen, or if you ask me, I will consider uploading an full uncensored R-rated version of this video to Patreon. So yeah, just let me know if you'd be interested in that. I'll think about making it. Hey everybody, it's me, Buster Green, and today we're going to discuss something a little spicy and a little crazy. Today we're going to be talking about the great lady named Rebecca Sugar. Now, she's been trending this weekend for a kind of fucked up but utterly fascinating reason. And to sugarcoat that reason as nicely as possible, the main reason she's trending is that we all miss her. We miss her just so much, and the public is hoping that she's going to come back someday and show us something amazing. And now, me personally, I want her to come back, but I also want her to come back at her full potential. So here's what I've decided to do. If you don't know who Rebecca Sugar is, sit your butt down, because I'm going to do a full biopic. I'm going to do a full recap on who she is and why she matters, on the basis that I might never get to talk about Rebecca Sugars again, and I think Rebecca Sugar is one of the most interesting cartoon creators in history, a real rogue agent in the Hollywood structure that has the potential to change the entire world. Now, if you do know who Rebecca Sugar is, though, if you know her, then please graciously fast forward to this point in the video, where you'll be caught up to recent events, and we'll talk about what's going on now. So the first time I ever heard about Rebecca Sugar, I was living in Los Angeles. I only lived in Los Angeles once, but the word on the street at that time was there was this young woman named Rebecca Sugar who was going to change the world. She was a songwriter by trade, but she had gotten greenlit for a new TV series called Steven Universe. I think the original pilot had already been shown on Cartoon Network by that time, and the word on the street was that Steven Universe was going to be the grandest, most story-heavy cartoon that Cartoon Network had ever made in its history. And I kind of wanted to meet her, but I ended up never meeting her because I don't think she goes outside much. Now, Rebecca Sugar is a pretty fascinating person. The interesting thing about breaking down her life is there's so many different layers to it that I feel like to tell this story to you guys, I have to reveal these layers in order. So let's start with her professional layer, because I feel like that's the layer most people are going to see first, and I feel like that's the layer that most people will only see. Rebecca Sugar is an artist and animator from Silver Spring, Maryland. I've been to Silver Spring, Maryland once. In a nutshell, Silver Spring, Maryland is a place where people who work in Washington, D.C. go to live if they decide that they want to live in Maryland. It's a pretty hotly political town, and it's a town where a lot of extreme people have come out of. I don't know, I've known some people from Silver Spring, and they've been kind of hotheads. Anyway, in 2005, she enrolled in the School of Visual Arts, New York's favorite animation school. And around 2008, she became friends with Ian Jones-Quartey, the future creator of the show OK-Ko. Now, the two of them soon became collaboration partners for life, and it was later revealed that basically as soon as they met, the two of them secretly started dating at the time. Now, they denied it at first because Rebecca is a very private person, but yeah, they have been apparently in a constant secret relationship, and 10 years after this relationship started, they eventually got married. Now, I'm not going to get into her identity too much, but in a 2020 interview, Sugar went on the record that she feels so conflicted about her own identity that it causes her deep pain. See, she identifies as a bisexual, non-binary woman, and she has both been reluctant and troubled by the idea of herself as a female role model, and that her prestige that she was the first female Cartoon Network creator, and what that means as herself, as she doesn't really view herself as a woman, and that she has obtained the celebrity status as a woman, and she's been both defined and conflicted by that status, and cautious about revealing info about her public persona, and very protective of what people know of her private life. Basically, she wants to stay a private person, and she doesn't want anyone to know her. So, out of respect for that, let's just not know her. But then again, this video is all about her. So, yeah, I guess what I want to get into this video is I don't think we've ever seen the real Rebecca Sugar, but I feel like the real Rebecca Sugar is starting to leak out, and I feel like Rebecca Sugar definitely has some unsung things to say, which is kind of why I'm making this video. So anyway, back to the history lesson. Ian Jones Cordy was hired to work on the Venture Brothers, and then somehow successfully pivoted after the Venture Brothers to working on season 1 of Adventure Time, and then he got Rebecca hired from there with him. Now, Rebecca Sugar massively impressed the cast and crew of Adventure Time and was rapidly promoted up the ladder, becoming a full storyboard artist in her first month on the job, and then eventually getting some control over the show as the tired and rich Pendleton Ward stepped down and gave control over the franchise to both her and Adam Muto, as well as putting a majority of her own independent songs into the show, which really made the show come to life. Now, personally, in my opinion, I think Rebecca Sugar basically saved Adventure Time. I don't think they'd still be making Adventure Time if Rebecca Sugar hadn't been there to write the most important core episodes of the show. Like, she basically saved that show. The best episodes of the show are all her episodes. Like, my personal favorite episode, Simon and Marcy, that was her, as well as the Farm World episodes, as well as Fiona and Cake. Like, everything that really became Adventure Time with the Adventure Time multiverse, we really owe to Rebecca Sugar. And literally, like, the fact that there even is, like, still Adventure Time, like, that's, again, Rebecca Sugar. Like, there's a new Adventure Time that just came out called Fiona and Cake, and that was mostly based on ideas that Rebecca Sugar originally came up with, and then bounced back and forth with, like, Natasha Allegri. So anyway, yeah, Sugar worked on Adventure Time for years and, like, basically, like, ran the show during its best run, in my opinion. Now, also, while at the same time she was working at Adventure Time, or maybe a few years before it, Sugar also wrote this extremely high-quality 10-page short comic called Don't Cry For Me, I'm Already Dead. Now, this is a weird comic, at least in my viewpoint, because this comic for me is part of what I saw back in the time I lived in LA. It's part of this very specific trend that was happening around like the 2011s, the 2013s. This trend where in LA, a bunch of people made these weird slice of life indie comics, seemingly based around like cute and well-known pop culture ideas, but then somehow tying these ideas back into like real life tragedy or real life events with this stinging tinge of irony. This was a thing that so many people did back then. There were ones about Mickey Mouse, Pokemon, Spider-Man, and one of the most popular ideas was to do it about The Simpsons. The idea was basically that the pop culture thing that you were putting in the comic would make the comic go viral and make it relatable to an audience, and then hopefully that audience would like promote it, and a young and upcoming artist would become famous doing this. Now, I can't pinpoint where this trend started, but the common theme of this idea was just that, like, being an adult is hard, and that the cartoons and superheroes we loved as kids did not adequately prepare us for the horrors of modern life. So yeah, anyway, Rebecca jumped on this comic trend, and she made her comic. Her comic is called Don't Cry For Me, I'm Already Dead. It's a quote from Barney Gumble in an old Simpsons episode where, just for a minute, he realizes how pathetic he is being a washed-up alcoholic. Now, the concept here is that there's these two slacker brothers. They're named Alan and Jim, and the only thing they share in common is that they both grew up watching every single episode of The Simpsons, and they have a variety of inside jokes tied around Simpsons quotes. And this is how they've lived happily for years and years and years. Unfortunately, one sad day, Alan gets into a super serious car accident. He suffers severe brain damage, and he can no longer communicate with anyone. But eventually his brother discovers that somehow the one part of his brain that's had all the Simpsons quotes inside it, that part of his brain is still intact. And with that one part, his brother and him can still communicate on this barely functional level just by communicating using Simpsons quotes. It's so fucking sad, it's kind of autistic, and it's kind of real because there are cases where like someone would like get damaged in a car accident and like lose the ability to speak Spanish, even though that was like their native language, but they could still speak English. Anyway, yeah, so despite this optimistic discovery, Alan is still dying, and Jim, tears in his eyes, delivers the sad news to Alan that he's going to die. And once again, the only way they can communicate is using Simpsons quotes. So Jim and Alan have this one final conversation using only Simpsons quotes, conveying that Alan's about to die, and Alan seemingly conveys that he's fine with that. End scene. So yeah, this is a brutal comic, but the art here is phenomenal, as well as the subtle Simpsons Easter eggs sprinkled throughout, such as the fact that the comic starts on a scene of the sky, and then joins the main character sitting on a couch, mirroring the way that the Simpsons opening starts in the shortened episodes. Oh, and hey, also, there's that Nuke the Whales poster from that one episode too, but anyway, yeah, so despite this being an unpublished Simpsons fan comic, Sugar's comic was a certified hit. It went viral around Cartoon Network, and Rebecca from this comic was given a pilot deal. And instead of getting a full cartoon about Alan and Jim and their car accident tragedy, the main character, Jim, he eventually became fucking Steven Universe. And this pilot is made, and that's the first time I hear about her. So yeah, anyway, Rebecca keeps working on Adventure Time, but Steven Universe becomes bigger and bigger and eventually blows up. It gets picked up into a real show, it hits the network in just the right way at the right time, and it becomes its own legend in its own sort of way, as a bunch of young queer teens latched onto it, and a bunch of kids just liked it for being a fun cartoon show. And anyway, I'm not reviewing Steven Universe in this video because that's a whole separate video if I ever feel like it, but the show was extremely groundbreaking at its time, and it also rose up around the same time as Rick and Morty, and it seemingly also gathered its own toxic fan base for different reasons that I won't get into. But yeah, Steven Universe is fun. It's a show about a little kid named Steven, and he's got magic powers, and he's got like 3 moms, and it's complicated. Anyway, back to Rebecca. Rebecca stopped working on Adventure Time after season 5 because Steven Universe needed her full attention. However, she would go back to Adventure Time a couple of times for the Stakes miniseries and the finale. And later on, she worked on Fiona and Cake, but that's because that happened 10 years later, and that's a story for later. But yeah, back to Steven Universe. So yeah, Steven Universe was a certified hit. So Steven Universe did so good that eventually Steven Universe was followed up by Steven Universe the movie, which was also kind of amazing. Steven Universe the movie was another standalone story set slightly after Steven Universe, with a slightly older Steven, where he fights a rubber hose animated villain named Spinel, and it used songs intensely in its storytelling, and Steven Universe the movie was just fucking amazing. Now finally, after Steven Universe, we got handed Steven Universe Future, a 1-season show, an epilogue to the whole Steven Universe franchise, mostly focused on Steven finally growing into an adult and moving away from home, and a little bit about how screwed up a person he became because he fought all these battles as a child and never really had a real childhood. And in that way, Steven Universe was essentially the story of Michael Jackson. Come on! But yeah, Steven Universe Future was a pretty divisive work because although adults enjoyed the shift in tone and the more cerebral focus of it, it just wasn't a fun show, and it was honestly kind of scary and alienating for kids who had just seen the last episode of Steven Universe, and now here again we are a year later, and all those kids are seeing Steven as an adult going through suffering and lashing out against his friends and family, and like, no one was kind of thrilled about it. I would kind of argue that when you compare Steven Universe to Adventure Time definitely earned its transition from a kid's show into an adult show, that it took things slowly and carefully. There's this slow ramp up in maturity from season 3 of Adventure Time until the end of the show. And even though I would argue that 13 years later, when Fiona and Cake finally dropped, even though that was marketed as a show for adults, it still wasn't too far off the tone of Adventure Time. It just added more to it. It added this adult level complexity to the relationship drama. It had the occasional horrific death and the minor implication of sexuality that was always there in Adventure Time, but in Fiona and Cake, it came to the forefront. But meanwhile, Steven Universe Future came out the same year as Steven Universe ended. So there were kids who were just full out depressed and saddened to see Steven go from a child superhero to a washed up loser in a single year. And that whiplash was what made Steven Universe arguably a failure. just that tonal whiplash alienated its child audience, and so Rebecca kind of just never worked after that. Or did she? Well, here's the thing. It's been 5 years after Steven Universe Future ended, and since the show ended, Rebecca Sugar has effectively disappeared. Now, I've heard some rumors from 4chan that I cannot confirm or verify that Sugar did start some sort of elite-level clique/private friend group. Now, this is just a rumor, but people have seen Sugar with an enormous entourage of men and women following her around. Some rumors have it that she started a cult, or it's potentially something like the party drug use circle Max Landis used to have, called the Color Society, as it was later nicknamed by the media. Otherwise, in 2021, she played herself in an unpaid cameo in Amphibia's Christmas special, where she was credited as Becca Salt. I have no idea why Disney wouldn't pay her for that, though. That seems like a pretty major role. I'm hoping creator Matt Braley paid her under the table or something, because that seems fishy to me, and I can't verify that, but that just seems wrong. It seems though he at least paid her back by getting her another job, because as of a 2023 Deadline article, it lists that Braley was developing a fantasy adventure film about being Thai-American, and that Sugar would be writing the script, and the final animation would be done by Sony Pictures Animation. And I guess continuing her pivot to a Hollywood screenwriter, apparently WB has announced that Sugar has been tasked with returning to Adventure Time yet again to write some sort of unannounced final Adventure Time movie. I'm not really sure what this would be, and I'm not sure if I even want this. I'm kind of done with Adventure Time after Fiona and Cake. I kind of feel like Fiona and Cake kind of perfectly wrapped up every original plot hole left in Adventure Time lore, aside for a handful of vague, unconfirmed details about Simon and Marcy's early post-apocalypse life. So here's the thing, like, Fiona and Cake did make some major ripples in the animation world, and Rebecca Sugar got interviewed a bunch of times around Fiona and Cake, and one Variety interview asked her about if she would ever be interested in doing a Steven Universe continuation like Fiona and Cake, which for the rest of this video I will be referring to as Steven Universe After Future. Now, there's been some other speculated titles, but I'm calling it After Future because I'm just guessing canonically that it will be set after Steven Universe Future, and also After Future was the name the fan base randomly arrived on for the series of Dragon Ball set after Dragon Ball GT. Later, this ended up being Dragon Ball Super, but, you know, even before Toriyama officially named it Super, people were calling it Dragon Ball AF. So for me, After Future sounds like it should be real. And anyway, yeah, back to Steven Universe. So yeah, Steven Universe After Future was kind of what I originally wanted to make this video about, but there's not really a ton to go on, except unfortunately there is. Okay, trigger warning. The rest of this video, I have to discuss some damn erotic stuff. Some erotic literature, some very uncomfortable adult situations, and in some of these cases, those situations are going to be posited on some classic fictional children's anime characters. So, yeah, Rebecca Sugar, in a borderline troll move, in a move that might go down in infamy in some circles, has been releasing or leaking, I want to say, her erotic fanfic table scraps of some shit that might go down in Steven Universe After Future. Now, I'm not going to show these to you because they're disgusting. If you want to see them, just go on Twitter and search for Rebecca Sugar right now. But yeah, the memes kind of say enough, at least for me. Look, I want to say she's trying to do the Deadpool strategy of leaking some spicy, dirty shit, hoping it goes viral and hoping the studio notices and greenlights her or gives her a bag of money or something. But apparently this is actually not even like something Sugar apparently had to go far out of her way to do, because apparently this is just her like natural core existence. See, apparently before Rebecca Sugar was famous or even an animator, Rebecca Sugar was a 14-year-old teenage girl. And teenage girl Rebecca Sugar basically grew her prowess as an illustrator by straight up being a dirty teenage girl hentai fan artist. You know, one of those. Like, she got her start doing Invader Zim fan art, where in kind of a hilarious self-insert situation, she drew like these fan comics where she created a character for herself named Rebecca, who was Dib's long-awaited girlfriend, and because of a change in the power dynamic, Zim would try to kidnap and torture Rebecca to mess with Dib, and once again, you can kind of read between the lines that this is Rebecca herself wanting to date Dib, but also to be tortured by Zim. Spicy. Now, after this, her art gets a little bit better, and she drew some pretty fucked up shit, including this hilarious parody of Ratatouille, where it's just like, it's like an after Ratatouille kind of sex scene where, like, I guess the mouse made the nerdy guy fuck the hot girl, and I gotta give this one a gold star for being her most amusing, best erotic parody. Like, this one, in my opinion, is kind of her masterpiece. And from going from best to worst, lastly, there's this horrible and disgusting Ed, Edd and Eddy fan comic where the three Eds, just for one horrible reason, someday decide to have their way with each other, and this one is just filthy and nasty, and nah. I didn't even like this show, but nah. Just nah. And so that brings us to the Steven Universe After Future content, which is complicated and just as bad. Now, on the one hand, I can say that maybe the Steven Universe After Future content, maybe this implies that it takes place years after Steven Universe Future, and it's definitely like implying that all these characters became adults and, you know, started banging each other. Now, on the one hand, this could just be Rebecca's private crack shipping, and maybe she's releasing it to stir the pot, to build up hype, and to get herself another show. But here's what we got, and I'm going to go over these chronologically because they're a real mindfuck. So there's some additional panels to the Greg Universe flashback arc where things take a sudden darker turn. And while in the original episode there was like definitely some sexual tension there, in these additional panels, it seemingly implied that Rose Quartz forced Greg and Pearl to have sex with each other for her amusement, which is incredibly dark. Now, then there's a follow-up story on that years later because, oh wow, this is horrible. Basically, Greg forces himself on Pearl, and oh shit. I don't think I can even describe this. This is just filthy. So yeah, I don't think that's ever going to get animated, and I think the implication there is just kind of horrible. So then moving on to the new one that has just really created some shockwaves online. In another majorly fucked up crack ship, apparently Sadie and Amethyst hook up at some point after Steven Universe Future. And this hookup is majorly out of left field here, except at some point, Amethyst turns into Lars, Sadie's supposed true love, and we get a completely screwed up scenario play out where Sadie fully confirms her feelings for Lars by having sex with Amethyst, transformed into Lars, and then later ends up seemingly abusing Amethyst to force her to continue to pretending to be Lars, and the scene ends unresolved with fucked up feelings all around. And cue the memes. Yeah, holy shit, that one's really fucked up. So, like, not only this seemingly clarify the very dark implications of that one time Amethyst turned into Rose to fuck with Greg, but I hate everything about this so much because it basically paints Sadie as a villain, and it also seemingly has so many deep levels of just that fear about whether Sadie actually loves Lars or whether Sadie loves Amethyst's portrayal of Lars. And holy shit, I feel bad for Lars, but did Lars even love Sadie back? Man, Lars just got screwed in this show, and it's hard to even say how he's feeling because he's a space pirate now, but holy shit, if this is just a fucking taste of Steven Universe After Future, well, honestly, this taste is like so spicy that I'm not even sure how to process this. I'm not even sure if like I need like a glass of milk to like follow this down. Okay, being real for a sec, this is a major mindfuck, and I gotta say that I'm not sure I want this. Like if we got this as a show, let's say Steven Universe After Future gets made, and the first episode is character A fucks character B. It's Steven Universe with sex scenes added in. Like, do I really want that? Do you really want that? Leave a comment, because I can't even like fucking process this. But here's basically where I'm at with this. While I'm okay with there being another Steven Universe series, while I'm okay with there being a Steven Universe After Future, I don't think I want it to be a sex drama. I think that would be the same tonal whiplash we got going from original recipe Steven Universe into Steven Universe Future, but a million times worse. And I can already see the complaints from the soccer moms in the Catholic Church because Steven Universe has just become someone's precious childhood memory, and I can already see the YouTube video, Rebecca Sugar ruined my childhood by making all the characters fuck. I think the issue here, though, is that Rebecca Sugar really seemingly has been waiting her entire life to tell one fantastic sex drama, and it's seemingly eating at her. Now, I should also mention that there's one thing that has significantly changed the ball game in the 5 years that Steven Universe has ended, and that is that Vivian Medrano has come on the scene. Hazbin Hotel, Helluva Boss has taken the world by storm. And Vivian Medrano, also an alum of SVA, also an indie animator with a passion for original songs and sex drama, made Hazbin Hotel, and then she made Helluva Boss. Now, Helluva Boss is perhaps the greatest, most violent, most sex drama ever made in terms of the cartoon world. And Helluva Boss is honestly, literally, seemingly everything that teenage, horny Rebecca Sugar ever dreamed of, because it has the voice of Zim, it has Richard Horvitz, and he's playing a little demon guy with a bow tie, and he's banging his little demon wife. And I wonder, has she seen it? She must have seen it, right? How could she not? That's everything she ever wanted. Now here's my personal hope for what Rebecca Sugar could do next. I want Rebecca Sugar to make something else, but I don't want her to be a hack. I don't want her to be a ghostwriter on someone else's Adventure Time movie. I don't want her to write Amphibia. I want Rebecca Sugar to do her own stuff. Now, famously, J.G. Quintel successfully pivoted from doing regular show to doing Close Enough, which was a better show, a more grounded regular show with a more adult cast of characters that tackled more adult themes. And that show was amazing. I don't know why fucking David Zaslav killed that show. I fucking want that show back. And likewise, veteran Cartoon Network director Genndy Tartakovsky went from Dexter's Lab to Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, to eventually making an unfiltered masterpiece like Primal for Adult Swim. So, you know what I really want to see? I want to see what Rebecca Sugar would make if they had given her Close Enough, if they had given her Primal. I don't want Steven Universe again. I want to see what's next from her. And I want her to make a show for Adult Swim or HBO Max. If they've consolidated, then fuck it. Just give Rebecca carte blanche to make an HBO original series. I can think of no one more deserving or better to do one right now, and someone who will really take advantage of those Game of Thrones Boardwalk Emperor sex scenes. Now, I'm going to close this out saying that Rebecca Sugar is trying to be a screenwriter right now. Well, I think Rebecca Sugar deserves a fucking Oscar. And I think she could probably easily win one. You want to know how? Poor Things. Simply Poor Things. Poor Things is a movie so sexually explicit that I've been unable to review it on this YouTube channel by now. But it's basically a very kinky retelling of Frankenstein, where Frankenstein's monster ends up being a super hot girl played by Emma Stone, who realizes that she can have sex with men to pursue her interests in life. The creator of Gundam, Yoshiyuki Tomino, said that it was the best movie he'd seen in years, and it really made him rethink what you could accomplish in a live-action movie. Poor Things was nominated for over 11 Academy Awards, and it won 4 of them. It was actually nominated for so many awards that it has a Wikipedia page just for the damn awards it's won. And I bring this up because we live in a time period where there is an unquenched desire for sexual media coming out of Hollywood. And here we have Rebecca Sugar, who has an unquenched desire to make some sexual media. And here we have the public, who has an unquenched desire for Rebecca Sugar to just make anything right now. So my suggestion, therefore, is that if Rebecca Sugar had made Poor Things, then obviously Rebecca Sugar would have won 4 Oscars. So, based on this leaked Steven Universe After Future material, it shows that Rebecca Sugar has some dark, twisted, fucked up sexual desires that she wants to express through film and animation. And I think they should just let her do it. But I don't think it should be a Steven Universe sequel. If Rebecca Sugar can write something as profound as Amethyst and Sadie hooking up with all these horrifying and dark implications, then I really do think that she could write an Academy Award-winning sexual fantasy horror movie. I think that's just waiting inside her, waiting to get out. And even if she doesn't go that route, I want to say that if Rebecca Sugar did pivot hard into movies, she could honestly be the next Tim Burton. I think there's really nothing stopping her. Like Tim Burton went from doing like quirky Beetlejuice stuff to like all these big movies like Batman. She could do that too. Like for another century of people, she could be their Tim Burton. So yeah, just clarifying where I'm at with this. I'm okay if there's a Steven Universe sequel, but I don't want an X-rated sequel. I want Rebecca Sugar to make a brand new X-rated show that doesn't have all of this like baggage from Steven Universe. Or maybe she can make an X-rated live-action movie, which I think, given a full wide release for, she would absolutely get an Oscar for. That's my argument right now. Give Rebecca Sugar a fucking Oscar. Good night. I'm sick.